You are in for a real treat today because Geraldine is one of the all-stars of our team, really. She came from a pretty mainstream world, and overnight she was transformed, transported, and transfixed. I mean, she went through a change, and now she's really one of the leaders of our team, of our field, because she's bringing through this higher consciousness as it integrates with our DNA and changes our mind, activates our personality, and transforms us into the new beings that we've been always knew we would become. So this is about the talk, Interdimensional Alchemy. The theme of Adam Apollo's talk was alchemy. So we are all in an alchemical process right here. So this is really the last step in this whole portal to ascension, and Geraldine has the capstone here. So let's give Geraldine Orozco a big, big hand for being here. Thank you, Geraldine.
Can you guys? Yes. Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here, such a pleasure to connect with you all. So today, there's a couple things that I really want to impart that really came through strong to leave you with this message. So let's see if we can get through it. I'm going to talk to you about interdimensional alchemy, okay? How many of you are familiar with alchemy or practices of alchemy? Okay, beautiful, excellent. So we'll start there, but let me begin really quickly to tell you a tiny little story about me, how I ended up doing what I do today. This is a picture of me as a little child, and I never knew that I would be doing what I'm doing today. My awakening happened slowly over several years. In 2008, with the death of a partner, that allowed me to really ask deep questions about the nature of reality. What is consciousness? What is really love? That was actually the main question that took me in. But what these questions led me is into deep, deep meditation, going deep inside to find these answers. And in 2013, I had a life-changing contact experience that in just a big bright light entered my room, and I was taken out of my room on board a craft. I was introduced to hybrid children. And I was introduced to a series of information, including my own Pleiadian roots and information about myself. Now, at this time, this was the first time that I conceptualized the idea of interdimensional beings, like actual aliens, what we call aliens. That word never entered my mouth until that moment. Before that, I thought about interdimensional consciousness as maybe light beings, orbs, other things like this. So I went through a really quick learning curve because after this experience, it activated my psychic abilities. And these psychic abilities completely allowed me to see the multidimensional body. This happened on a Friday night, Saturday. I recovered all Saturday, couldn't move. And on Monday, when I went to teach meditation, I'm in front of my client, and I can see absolutely everything. Light moving in her body, fields, energies. I can feel what she's thinking, feeling, and sensing, what she's going to be doing. So for months, I couldn't leave my house. It was just, I was incredibly sensitive. And all of this, I think that was the key that really made me believe what had happened to me, really integrated as a true experience. Even without that, I think I would have even maybe doubted. So at the age of 29, I had that experience. At the age of 33, in 2017, I began to download massive amounts of information. What is the hybridization program? What does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to live interdimensionally? And in 2018, I had a near-death experience that allowed me to enter into this other realm of death, out of body, and experience these interdimensional realms in a completely different way. Okay? So that completely gave me a kind of an overview of navigation of these planes in a way that I think helped me understand how we function. So based on that, I will share what I have learned through this process. First of all, our physical vessel, it's a temporary tool for transformation, access to infinite wisdom, fractalization, transmutation, and integration. And I would love to, hopefully at the end of this lecture, leave you with the tools to do that so that you can begin to learn how to navigate this. Now, through the ages, all the sages and the people that come into higher wisdom are the ones that remember. They begin to remember. They access these higher levels of consciousness. So we have this information in our realm available to us at any time, but we need to learn how to access that information. And we can do so by learning how to use this multidimensional organism, which is a tool. So this complex system, your physical body right now, is absorbing data and information 360 degrees around you. It is recording information. You might not be conscious of it. You might not understand that the whole back of your body is picking up information. You might not even be aware of the back of your body. And that is actually where the subconscious mind is processing all kinds of information. And our primary reality, what we call reality, what we project into reality, is based on all the subconscious programs that we have within us. They input into the reality directly, and they affect and create what we're doing. Now, all of these incredible information that these sages of ancient history are tuning into through generations, we have encoded within our DNA. We have that memory available in our DNA. And some of you have intuitive lineages, bloodlines. Your mother was intuitive, your grandmother was intuitive, you had an aunt that was intuitive, a father, a grandfather. So all of this information is actually brought down through the mitochondria. What is the mitochondria? The mitochondria is an aggregate copy of the before. This is really important, but also talks about how information is passed down through these generations that allows us to understand how we inherit this information and how we can activate that. But the feminine energy, okay, not just the feminine, but the woman vessel that is the portal to life, that brings life, seeds it into this planet Earth, has the mechanisms and the access in her physical body to access direct consciousness. And that's been preserved and utilized in many different cultures through history. The Druids used to use these divine virgins, and they would connect to source, and they would be the channels. And many ancient civilizations also did the same. So we have to understand that this physical body has a certain function to it. And the woman, the womb that brings life into this planet is actually the one that is encoding this memory. But it isn't until the integration of the both that we begin to activate and remember that memory. So what is it that we are holding within this DNA? What are we unlocking? DNA stores massive amounts of information. In fact, in 1 tablespoon of DNA, we are holding the world's history. Okay, so can you imagine how much information you have within your body? The process of accessing this information depends on how we work with our multidimensional body. Now, in this earth matrix, in this physical realm that we exist, we abide by the law of 3, okay? The feminine, masculine, the father, mother unite together in order to create the third, to bring the third into life. We also have 13-dimensional layers of our body. Those are primarily the ones that you have access to. You have infinite bodies, and as you will see in just a moment. But the ones that we should minimally be able to access and master is the 13 main dimensional layers of your body right here, right now. And within these dimensional layers is where we leave and travel and navigate in dream time. So every time that you're having dreams, even if you think that they're abstract and silly and not very meaningful, you are actually living and existing and interacting in these realms. The more you come into clarity, into intuition, into integration, you will be able to translate that information in a way that will be clear for you. That's kind of like your frequency dial coming into resonance, coming into alignment, okay? But all of this information is also, even the experiences in your dream state are encoded in your DNA. So this concept of the matrix being external, I want to make very clear, is not external. It is within your fields. Within these 13-dimensional layers of your body is everything that we are projecting. Okay, every single one of you is having a specific perspective of me speaking right now. And you are contributing to the co-creation of that, and I'm contributing to the co-creation of all of you. So this is an important concept to really understand when we think about interdimensional contact. Now, in each one of these dimensions, there are certain laws to how light and information processes, how it bends, how it functions, how it develops. Just like in a third dimensional plane, we have this law of 3. Our bodies are structured geometrically to process that information. And the higher we go in dimensional layers, the more complex the geometric structure becomes. And so that complex geometry is actually what allows you to process that high-level frequency information. But this is something that you can also activate and access and shift and become. You become that divine symmetry in order to create these beautiful expressions of geometry. But without doing that work, we're pretty much kind of a jumbled, distorted mess, okay? But not without purpose, because everything in this universe has this incredibly divine way of self-organizing information. And the spiral is the design of pathway of life force that this universe has chosen for its expression. The way that you condense massive amounts of information is through coiling. And that's been shown in many, many beautiful examples of nature. The way water moves, the way leaves grow, the patterns and the fractal form that leaves are growing on a tree, we see it absolutely everywhere. We see it in patterns of birds, nature, the way that the blood vessels move through your body. There is this elegant, perfect design. But as above, so below, the way that this system is constructed in this beautiful geometric form is also the way that this entire universe is moving and evolving. So we are actually moving in this spiral motion through an order, and I really love this picture because it shows the way, I kind of see it, and maybe many of you see it. But as we evolve through this time, everything is moving through a spiral motion. But this is all part of how we perceive this man-made time construct. In the bigger picture, we are moving through these, many of you are familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, fractals of frequency that we're moving through. So right now we're moving through the 13th, and in this 13th is all the organisms take on this 13-dimensional layers of consciousness, and we are learning how to move through that, and we're moving into this 21 construct. So more of your layers of your body are becoming activated. You can access them easily. Some of you that have been cultivating and that have ancestors of high-level consciousness in your family bloodlines have access to more of this information at an early age. So you remember really early, you're super intuitive. Okay, but the more that you begin to activate this DNA, you access these layers of your field and you can work with them. So our physical body essentially ends up looking something like this, in a way in how source moves through the center column of your body. Okay, we are fields within fields, toroidal fields within one another, but essentially we are also living and exist within a DNA strand. It's like a DNA strand, this entire construct that we exist within. So these portals, when they become harmonic, when they come into order, that's when things begin to flow in a perfect manner. So everything in this universe, as you can see, is kind of developed that way, and I'll talk about Sophia in just a moment. But our physical bodies, the way that our cells are, the way that energy is moving in this higher function is all moving in this spiral motion. So this is important because when these spiral movement and open ways of energy become blocked, we become blocked in many, many ways. This is how your physical body looks like. So anytime that energy becomes blocked in a way where you cannot create a spin with your field, you become sick and essentially you die. It becomes counter-creative as opposed to constructive and creative. And our physical bodies essentially look like this. We are comprised of many, many points of vortices in the physical body. Each one of your chakra centers, I know you're familiar with the chakra centers, they kind of express themselves in this way. This is an example of the heart chakra, but it creates the entire field of your body. And through that is fed life force through the center core of the body. Now, there are also spirals design in the way that information is integrated in the body. So the integration of your lower 3 layers, your root, sacral, and solar, become the Qing energy, which is the primordial life force, and your middle bodies, your heart, your throat, and your third eye create that center, the middle bodies, and the integration with what they call the Shen is essentially the higher levels of your body, the integration. So the integration of, again, 3, everything is in 3s, then activates your entire organism into a higher function. And hold on, I'll tell you how. But our physical bodies are divided in this beautiful self-organizing system of feminine and masculine energy. Everything is functioning in duality. So this left side of your body is your feminine, the right side is the right. And depending on how you work with energy in either of these energies, it doesn't matter your sex, you are either allowing that life force to move through or it becomes stagnant. And the masculine represents your action, what you're putting into effect, the things that you are creating in the physical. Your intuition is, of course, the intuitive abilities that you're putting into things. So any blockages in your field in any of those 2 energies will block your ability to manifest that. So let's talk really quickly about the chakra system, because this is really important. When a chakra comes into its full expansion, the center chakra actually looks like this. So if you look at this, this is one of your chakra bodies. Okay, so every single one of the chakras has coiling. This is kind of how the chakra actually looks from the inside. When you look at it from the front, all of these coils actually make up your entire chakra. And each one of these coils is a holographic projection of your DNA. So, and also remember that every one of the chakras is a certain vibrational frequency that infinite potential is organizing within the body. Okay? So, every single one of these coils is basically how the universe is self-organizing within that information. So let's talk about DNA. When this coiling process functions, the way to braid the DNA, braiding they call the spiraling motion, is when the organism comes to its higher harmonic state. When we create homeostasis, when we create balance and order in the energy centers of the body, it actually creates harmony in the way that it builds. And the protein of your body, so now let's take a look at this. Only 2% of the protein of your DNA is actually making your entire physical body, just 2%. Okay, can you imagine that? So the rest of the DNA, which they call junk DNA or dark DNA, what is that doing? So the beautiful thing about this is that we don't really comprehend how interdimensional we are, how much interdimensional we are. But in reality, let's just make sure we're clear, this is 2%, right? The rest of this is actually what you are and what's actually functioning, creating, manifesting, interacting interdimensionally. So how many of you are aware and know how to master the interdimensional aspect of yourself? Okay, not very many, right? So this is important because actually your entire life, until you realize this, you're only repeating patterns that have been inherited to you. And you're only really playing by the laws of matrix programming. What's matrix programming? Matrix programming is everything that we have built over time to create this construct. That's encoded in your DNA. When your soul incarnates into your physical body, you are attaching to 2 lineages, 2 systems of self-organizing information. Your DNA is the information that is ancestral information. Everything from your ancestral lineage is programs, memories that you are cycling through. So beyond that, there is so much more. Our ancestors in dream time, and this is something that the Native Americans and many, many ancient cultures talked about, but the ability to remember your dreams and your memory state, that's actually the memory that allows you to understand who you are and who your ancestors are. And we are much more than just this human race, okay? So some of you might be familiar with the nadis, but what I find striking about this image that was made thousands of years ago, right, before computers, before the science that backed all this stuff up, was this network of points of vortices of information. But as you can see, some of them are in the body, and a lot of them are outside of the body. So they already knew, they already had a vision, of course, we know that, but they were already able to read and understand their multidimensionality. And it's within this network of information that we're now understanding through science what that is. Our physical bodies kind of have, we exist within a network of information. And every single one of these points that you'll see here in this little image, the cross-section that's created is a vortex around you, in and around you, and it's interconnected in and around you. But what we're talking about now is the morphogenetic field. The morphogenetic field is essentially the instruction manual for form to come into manifestation. The morphogenetic field imposes patterns on otherwise seemingly random and or indeterminate patterns of activity, such as the crystallization of microtubules in particular part of the cell. And we'll talk about crystallization in just a moment. But these fields are transmitted from past members of species through morphic resonance, a type of non-local resonance. Social groups are also organized by these fields and transmitted memories through the culture of a group. In addition, rather than absolute natural laws, patterns that we describe as law are simply due to the habits of nature, being self-reinforcing at a certain point. As a result, the habits of nature are subject to natural selection. Morphic fields also influence mental activity, allowing members of a group to connect together even when miles apart, which explains telepathy. So what we're talking about now is the actual field in which we are all interconnected. And this picture that I'm showing you here is how I see every single body in this room. Looks like this to me, because I can see your physical body in the center, but I can also see all the points of energy references that make up what you are interdimensionally. And how those are interconnected are by what you're doing in your body now, in your present body now. So if you look at all the people in this room, you are interconnected into one organism. The more time we spend together, the more we come into resonance, the more we become one organism. And essentially, when we think of life seeding in this planet, so now let's take this a little deeper. What does it mean to come into this physical realm? And let me show you this video. This is a video of, you're going to see is an egg being inseminated, and it's going to show you a spark of energy. Okay, so let's take a look at that for a moment. Okay, so those flashes of light are actually what's happening at the moment of conception. There is an electrical charge that is being created. Okay, so essentially this is so incredibly beautiful, because when we see that moment of conception, we're looking at the spark of energy that is being created at the moment that your soul is being attached to the physical realm. Within that moment is occurring something called an implosion moment, where all of these fields become in resonance in order to create you into your conception. And you are a photograph of the universe in that moment. Okay, that's what you are. You become encoded in that at the cellular molecular level of your body. So the way that, and now this goes even deeper, because how we conceive is incredibly important. Because even the two partners that come together, remember, they are their own vibrational frequency in their own. So those two vibrational frequencies, when they unite, they create a certain signature, and that is embedded in that structure. How can you make that signature of energy brighter? How do you make that spark larger? There's a way to do that. I'm going to show you that today. But essentially, the ability to do that will define the life of this organism in the world. It'll define whether this organism is able to anchor and become a conduit of infinite life force, or it will take a long time to remember, because that conduit of life force is actually the access to memory charge. Okay? So again, here's the image of us coming into the world, so the soul, and this infinite potential self-organizes through the chakra system, but is deeply interconnected into our DNA. So the DNA is what holds all of that information and self-organizes in the chakra system. So as you can see, now when I talk about this photograph of the universe, I'm not really talking about astrology. I'm talking about a universal astrology, you would say. The photograph of everything that existed at the moment of your conception is a vibrational frequency that defines multidimensionally everything that you've been. Let me explain, okay? So if you see this image, how we manifest from source, this is essentially how each of our layers of bodies come into form. We are source, we are fractal of source. We come into higher frequency fractals. Then we enter into an holographic interdimensional DNA ancestral groups. We're fractalized in that. Then we are kind of self-organized in the system of archetypes, and that is organized in ancestral DNA, which is everything we've been. And those trickle down into family and DNA, so your current ancestral programs. And in between those is where we begin to pick up the archetypal aspects of collective trauma. All of that is embedded in our DNA as well. We carry that. In fact, scientifically proven, with little mice, 20 generations of trauma is passed down. So they traumatized a little mouse, and then 20 generations later, they put the same mouse in the traumatizing experience, and the mouse remembered the trauma and reacted that same way. So we are all that. You need to understand that. Because some people say, why is it so hard to break certain belief systems, certain programs? Well, it's deeply, deeply embedded within us. So in order to really deconstruct that, you have to get down to that. You have to understand where this program came from and reintegrate that. Okay, so essentially the personality is a manifestation. It's a fractal of the ego, essentially. And our personality are the little masks that we wear in this lifetime, and we have many of them, right? But essentially, we are this pure consciousness, and very few of us access that conscious state without the personality self. That actually becomes that 0 point. Okay, again, that coherence that is created interdimensionally within us. So this is what we want to create. Now, with all 13-dimensional layers of all this information, they are all still experiencing duality. This is important because I'm here to talk about interdimensional, what's it called, alchemy. And so what are we talking about? We're talking about the integration of these informations. For some of you that are experiencers, that have positive experiences, some of you have negative experiences. How do you begin to parse between that? How do you master the navigation of these experiences? You can alchemize your interdimensional contact. That's the whole point of this conversation. Because I have an experiencer support group. I have hundreds of people from around the world come to the group, talk about their experiences, and the similarities are unbelievable, the things that I'm hearing in these groups. Both people that are part of the hybridization program. How many of you are familiar with the hybridization program? The concept of the hybridization program is essentially the idea that a human is breeding life with an interdimensional being or species, okay? And the side effects of that are powerful. Women literally become pregnant, as what happened to me, became pregnant without having a partner, and then losing the child 3 months later, not understanding what happened there. This happens to many women. And so in the process of that happening, it's not just a medical thing, but we also have dreams of being in contact and having the child removed, the fetus. We have these experiences, okay? So how do you explain that? And many women and men from around the world are experiencing that. So I guess what we need to understand is the value, the importance of our DNA, because our DNA is a blueprint for life, interdimensionally. And these beings that come in to breed with you, essentially, this is something that we somehow agree to interdimensionally, and some of these agreements we're not very conscious of, okay? So they end up sometimes being very parasitic. We create life forms that are going to contribute to counter-creative programs. So we also do that with the kids we bring into this world, mind you. Because when we bring children unconsciously, they suffer, and they also inherit our suffering. And we might be doing our best, but we are not able to allow them to come into their highest expression, right, as we wish. So the responsibility between our consciousness in the waking state and dream state is incredibly important. This is why this moment of ascension, having this conversation today, is so important, because we are moving through, the veils have thinned tremendously, which allow many of you to remember your contact and to become very lucid in your dream state. And that lucidity allows you the opportunity to apply free will. And free will isn't really accessible to you unless you know that you have it. But what does it mean to have free will when we look at this system here of interdependent, interconnected systems of consciousness? Well, the only way that you can navigate these realms in a way that is constructive is by coming into harmony, the coherence, the internal integration of all those. When we look at the ancestral origins of what we are, what is encoded in our DNA, every single living organism in this planet shares genetic information with us. Just 2,000 years ago, you and I, every single person in this room, we have had a relative in common. So there is an origin point from where we emerge. And even more so, the way that this self-organizing world functions, we also self-organize through our blood types. Okay, our blood types, depending on where we're born and how our family patterns of information are expressed, our blood type is also defining something about ourselves and how we process information. And this goes in another whole presentation I'm not going to get into today, but the interesting thing about this is that several surveys that have been done on experiencers and contactees talk about having Rh negative, as the majority of them having Rh negative blood type. Now, if you look at the history of Rh negative, which is found mostly its origin traced back to the Basque region north of Spain, they're not able to identify how that mutation came into play in this historical timeline. And it's very interesting because there are many ancient ruins and archaeological findings that link back to that Rh negative blood type, okay? So I won't get into that today, but it is important to note, and what I have to say about the Rh negative, because I get asked a lot, is that this Rh negative allows people to remember their experiences a lot. And there is a major element between Rh negative blood types and birthing and the kind of families that those Rh negative individuals combine with, the people that they combine with. So why is that important? Because this is such a self-organized system that the way consciousness groups together is by resonance. You and I, in this room, we haven't come here together just by chance. There is no such thing as random chance. In fact, we have all had tons of things happen over the past 3 weeks that have led you to come here. And things had to come into play. And our agreements to be here transcend lifetimes, actually, okay? So this self-organizing system, I want you to think of the same thing when you come together with partners, sexual partners, any kind of partners that you have, that you come into play actually is also organized in the system, even the ones that you don't think even the ones that you think might be random, okay? So this is important because actually the union of two souls in intercourse are actually creating interdimensionally. You're actually creating something interdimensionally. Even if you don't become pregnant in this physical realm, you are in creation interdimensionally. And that is actually what the hybridization program is. And it's functioning silently in the back end of all of these levels of our existence without our awareness. But it requires our consciousness to begin to understand the cultivation of this primordial life force, which is so important. So I just wanted to share this with you, that we're genetically similar between a human and a banana, 60%, okay? Just so you understand how one we are. So let's talk a little bit about ETs and our ET origins, okay? The story, Book of Enoch. How many of you are familiar with the Book of Enoch? Okay, so you know a little bit about this origin story where Sophia breathes life into Yaldabaoth, and Yaldabaoth then creates the archons. And from those archons, as the descendant of all of these species of beings that we all have now come to name, whatever we call them now. But I don't call them by those names. It's about vibrational frequency, because frequency is information. From these descendants now come you and I. Why? Because within our DNA, within our biological structure, is actually encoded these origins, these ancestral aspects of our alien, you can say, interdimensional beings are within us, okay? Our brain, actually we have a reptilian brain, and that is the one that functions the primal parts of us, the survival, the fight or flight. We use that part of our brain to assess whether we're safe or not. This is the oldest part of our brain, and it's found in reptiles, okay? So the thing is that when we are run by our primal brain, all of these other systems of our higher faculty cannot function. They are disabled. They're paralyzed. We cannot access that. We can't remember our dreams. Many of my clients come to me, I can't remember dreams, because we're in survival mode all the time. Our entire multidimensional body becomes counter-creative, okay? So this is important, because without the creative expression of your multidimensional body, you cannot anchor this infinite life force. Our cycle of pregnancy and the way that geometrically we are going through the mitosis process in the womb is also showing us a key element to how we have developed and our origins that originate in these races. Just like a fish, amphibians, reptiles, all of us begin in the same way, okay? And we are evolving through this process where it's almost as if we take all these forms before we become human. It's part of the order of our embodiment. Each one of these forms that we take has a geometric structure. And the geometric structure will define how we travel interdimensionally, or what we have access to in our DNA. So again, what we want to get to is the higher constructs of these geometric shapes, which we have the ability of embodying. We are, every single one of these lineages that we see here is encoded within our DNA. Some are more dormant than others. It requires the activation of our higher faculties to understand what we are. But many of you already know, because you have very strong resonance with certain planets, with certain beings, species. Okay? All of these are somehow an archetypal organization of vibrational frequency. We created these names, we give them the shape and the form. It's somewhat a program too, but bear with me. Because what it is consciousness, right? This is all parts of ourselves, fractals of ourselves. So some of you, and I will tell you, when I was a child at the age of 5, I used to look up at the Pleiadian constellation and I would pray to the constellation. I would say, Mother of Aquarius, please save me, or please help me, with something. So, it's very interesting because it was already in my memory somehow, but that was before I even knew what the Seven Sisters were or the Pleiadians, any of that. Okay? So, what are we holding in our DNA? What is encoded within the children that we bring here? Our DNA is a multidimensional toroidal nanotechnology, you can say, okay? It is a holographic structure of information. Your DNA, depending on how much you activate, becomes more complex to the point where when you activate everything, you become one. Every aspect of your DNA is something that we are activating through the unification process of ourself with the infinite. So in order to navigate these dimensions, those of you that are already lucid in your dream state, you've already activated these aspects of your DNA. And in order to become lucid in dream state, you have to learn how to navigate and change your brain waves, okay? So brain waves are affected by your state of consciousness. The deeper state of consciousness you can access, the higher the dimensional planes you can access. The faster your toroidal field is spinning, the higher you'll be able to navigate. You are either centrifugal, which means that all your energy is being depleted, counter-creative, or you are centripetal, which means that you become this construct of energy. And so the harmony that we create, that alchemical integration inside the physical body, is actually what creates this centripetal, the magnetism that attracts and puts you in resonance, in harmonic resonance to things, just like, Heart Math Institute talks about the heart and the resonance. But we actually activate that magnetism that attracts us. And when we function in that way, we're kind of being guided through our life experience in an intuitive manner that's beyond reason. And some of you know that, you've experienced that. So let's really quickly give you practical information, right? Because for me, what's more important is that you do the work rather than just listen to it. Because your bodies are the toroidal field. So the lower part of your body is holding on to that toroidal field. When you are out of consciousness, when you're not aware of your multidimensional body, most of your energy is being depleted. You don't even know what's happening to the back of your body. You don't know what your emotions are doing. Most of you have tense muscles. Most of you are kind of like worried about what the person next to you is doing or saying or thinking. You have all these things going on, and your energy is just depleted. So when you change that, when you become this centripetal movement of energy, your toroidal field begins to move quickly. And eventually you take form, the geometric structure. This self-organized information becomes a geometric structure, okay? So we become this Merkaba, which is now a very popular term that's used. But I want to mention that the Merkaba is only one of the many forms, the geometric structures that we take. We can actually take many geometric forms. And again, as I mentioned, the higher the dimension in which you are navigating, the more complex your geometry will be. Now, this is important because when you see orbs, for example, some of you that may have seen orbs can see sometimes geometric shapes in them. And a lot of contact experiences are these orbs that are coming. A lot of the UFOs, including the UFO that I was on, this craft that I was on, it is absolutely conscious. It is not metal. It is a plasma that is conscious, and it is telepathically moving, and it can also sense and read, and somehow you can also communicate with the craft. It's unbelievable. So it's not like a physical thing like this, and it's navigated by the person that's navigating the craft is telepathically hooked up to the craft. Okay, so think about this. What we think is technology, so when we hear UFOs getting shot down, I don't believe that 1 minute. I don't believe UFOs can be shut down because we're talking about interdimensional organisms, okay? And you cannot shoot something like that because it's not in the physical dimension. Simple, very simple. So when we see orbs, I want to remind you, your vibrational frequency is in resonance with that geometric shape, Very important. I want you to take note of that. Connect with yourself, ground with yourself, and activate your higher faculties immediately to tune into that. Because the reason why you can see that is because your resonance is available. I've done UFO tours with people, and groups of 50 people, like maybe 10 of them, we're all seeing this incredible craft, and then the rest of them won't see it. Why does that happen? Because, again, it's a frequency thing. Okay, so those of you that want to believe that this is just an external kind of lights in the sky thing, no, this is very much personal. ET contact and this process of interdimensional is personal, and it's important that each and every one of you begin to cultivate your ability to see, to sense, to interact, because you need to learn how to navigate and how to discern. You need to know how to discern a contractive energy, parasitic, and an expansive energy. And there's nothing scary about either of those. I want to mention, those of you that had traumatizing contact experience, please understand these are the shadow aspects, the unconscious deep realms of our own self that have not been aware yet. But they come to surface for you to become aware of them. It means that you have had generations, lifetimes of interaction with these realms, and the opportunity for you to utilize that information is so valuable. So at this time, and this wonderful time in history that we're all coming into consciousness about ET contact, it is our invitation to begin to master that kind of navigation. And it's from the inside out, because almost done here. We are alchemists, okay? So our body is a transducer of energy. We alchemize lower forms of energy into higher. That's the alchemization process. And we do that through the physical body. My suggestion is to start with your primordial sexual energy, transmuting that, okay? But the way I did it was simply through meditation. Hours of meditation and deprogramming, okay? And that also clears up the way. But essentially, you become a transducer, and what you want to do is you want to begin to activate your 7th and 8th chakra. The 8th chakra, as I mentioned, is the layer of your body that connects you to the DNA of the earth, this organism that we participate. It was Earth Day yesterday, or the day before that, but that is an extension of ourselves. It's an organism of intelligence. And so it is connected to the 8th dimensional layer. So when we activate that, we can read Akashic records, we begin to access ancestral memory, and that's where you're going to start tapping into these interdimensional aspects of yourself. Any part of you that is afraid, immediately you can close off yourself, and even sometimes cause yourself trauma by not sustaining neutrality. So my advice in this process is for you to try to train yourself to maintain neutrality as much as possible. Neutrality. We have to train neutrality. And this allows you to become a transduction system where you are moving this life force through the spinal cord up into the pineal gland where it becomes crystallized. Now, I talked about the crystallization process. The crystallization, your bones are a crystallization of information, okay? And your entire body has different ranges of crystallization by frequency. Every part of your body, your bones, your muscle system, nervous system, the organs in your body all have different ranges of frequency. We need to create harmony within all of those systems in order to be able to anchor source through the body, okay? Here's a pineal calcification. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the concept of pineal gland calcification, fluoride in the water and many other things. But in my opinion, mind over matter, no matter what, okay? So we should always be able to have mastery over the physical. And that's just the cultivation of how we move. So to end this, energy is moving through our body in that spiral motion, in that braided way. When we create blockages through fears and programs, it blocks the flow of energy. creating pain and illness in the body. Pain and illness should not exist in the body. That's not a natural thing. It's not inherited in your DNA. You can override that by changing the habits through the epigenetic structure of information. Okay? And essentially, we are coming into the activation of the higher bodies. Okay? So, as you begin to activate these higher chakra systems, you're going to activate as many chakras above you as you can. Okay? So 8 until the 13th, you want to go up to the 24th. Activate. Okay? That means that you expand those fields. That's what that means. You essentially look like this. And now, when you sit in meditation, many of you have done Vipassana. Now, next step is to begin to work with this information that you begin to find in there. Okay? And what happens when you do that deprogramming is that you change your DNA. And it activates from a disorganized, disharmonious system. Remember Dr. Emoto's work, vibrational frequency affects that water. We're made up most of water. And essentially, same way how we braid our DNA either creates harmonious, coherent system or blocked, incoherent system. Source can either move through the body or source cannot move through the body. This is the most important thing. So you have a pillar of white light through your body, which is your anchor of source. How many of you are aware of this right now? Nice. Awesome. Okay? So those of you that haven't, I invite you to bring that anchor of white light through your body in through the perineum, down to the center of the earth, and begin to activate that center. This is the alchemical process that we begin to integrate, even with our hybrids. Why? Because when you learn how to alchemize energy in the physical, you begin to change and awaken your family. Your children will change. It'll change. It changes in a way where they become conscious of change, of the possibility of change. And that's really powerful. But you also do it with your hybrids, those of you that have hybrids. Okay? So we can actually affect. And the purpose of hybridization programs is the fractalization of the soul in the matrix. Okay, so we become more fractalized. And those are all exchange programs that we can choose to participate in order to sustain a matrix. But you can also, through your alchemization, change the purpose of the agenda into expanding light. Because now that you've met hybrids, or you connect with hybrids, or your starseed children in this planet, every single one of your DNA codes is a portal into all of these species that you have all been made up of. And that's what we want to begin to work with. Okay? So, as above, so below, these toroidal systems are inside and out of us. I already explained this. Let me just come over here, guys, because I'm almost done here. Essentially, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but this is something that I saw in these realms, is that when we enter into unity consciousness, we can then become one with every organism interdimensionally, and that's the whole invitation of ET contact. ET contact is to be able to become one with all, that entire family that is encoded in you. Okay, so your level of creation defines what you're anchoring and what you're accessing. So I actually spoke about all these things already. Yeah. So contact experiences, essentially, what I want to leave you with is an expression of your DNA inheritance, okay? And how you come into this center point of creation will affect all of yourselves. They are also archetypal aspects of yourself that you are integrating. Integration means to become one. And that essentially is that you become all and nothing simultaneously. That's kind of what you want to become. 10? Okay, awesome. So, since I have a little bit more time, let me show you this part here. The crystallization of the pineal gland essentially is, again, as you see, these little crystals come from disorganized state into an organized order. Okay? That's essentially what's happening. And that's what you're doing in your DNA. That's what you're doing in the water flow, in the energy life force flow through your body, you're also bringing it into harmonic resonance. And how that looks like in your body, this is how the chakra looks like of a person that has trauma, fractalization. An entire field of your body is impacted and contracted, okay? When you heal that, then your body looks like this, one of your chakras, one of your vortex points. The full expansion of that chakra becomes expanded. And what happens is that this allows that energy to rotate through your body in order to become that toroidal navigation tool, okay? So we really want to be aware of the chakras. You can expand and contract your chakras. So I invite you to do this anytime that you are in a state of fear or anxiety. You can shrink your first 3 chakras, which are the physical, and immediately you will bring yourself into a state of neutrality. And this is really important when you guys are out there in dream time, becoming lucid. You now know how to direct that navigation, because this same laws in your physical function interdimensionally. Okay, because the physical anchors you into your experiences, because again, that's the home base of blueprint of DNA. So you have to work, you have to learn how to master interdimensionally. So if you see your chakras right now, check into every one of the chakras. How are they? Are they broken? Are they compacted? Are they contracted? What are they doing right now? And you want all of them to come into this beautiful expression, okay? So in my healing sessions, for example, what we're doing is what we do is when one of these little spirals are contracted, we expand them, which opens up a portal, because every single one of those vortex points is a portal that is a projection of your DNA. So you can read every single one of those coils, and those coils give you information, interdimensional information. So past lives, ET aspects of yourself, family, ancestral traumas that are all in resonance and embedded in that same information and data. So that's all in your chakra. So you can heal your body pretty quickly. And I work with lots of people that have cancers, that have illnesses, severe illnesses, and minor, even colds, that when you begin to do this, immediately the illness can flush out of the body. Because all illness is stagnant information. Okay, so that's the alchemization of the, and all of this is holding that memory. So what happens with memory? The more we remember, you know, star children that are being born right now, they are remembering everything. They remember their past lives. They remember interdimensional aspects of themselves. If you look at the work of Mary Rodwell, for example, who interviews these children, talking about these experiences, children are talking about, you know, this complex physics of some dimension at the age of 8. Okay? So this is what it means to have your activated DNA, which you begin to access memory. All of you have access to that infinite library of information, which is why you need to sit and connect into that realm. And I'm a strong believer that there is nothing outside of you. There is no information. There is no need to go anywhere other than where you are in order to access that information. Okay, this is really important that you do that, because that is the access into the whole you. Okay. So quickly to talk about hybrids to end this. Hybrids can be counter-creative or creative, and it's the same thing with your children. We affect the gene pool through these mutations. Now the mutations are an interesting thing. We talked about Christic consciousness, Christ consciousness, we have the concept of Jesus Christ. And if you look at that historically, that historical progression of Jesus Christ was a very important point. And memory, it's like a memory reminder for all humanity in a way of what we have the potential of becoming. And he's not the only one. It's Krishna, all of the major saints, you know, in our realm of consciousness, are an example of what all of you have and should. It's an invitation to become. And really, what we want to know, what we want to do is that we activate, when we have that halo on the body, but we begin to activate the light body. So this is something, I teach something called GPAC, grounding, protecting, aligning, co-creating. And the whole process of that is to learn how to master your present moment. Being grounded fully in your body, because most of us, we're up here. We're not even in the body, we're checked out. So what happens is that you become host to all kinds of parasites. That's your participation. You participate fully in that. So anytime that you're hypnotized or dreaming or checked out, you are host to all kinds of things. You need to bring yourself into the body. And when you bring yourself fully into that grounding, you can then work with your chakras. Your chakras should be a perfect pillar of light. Sorry. Where you are able to master that neutral point. Okay? And essentially, what we want to do is then you ground and protect. Now, what is protection? I get this question a lot. Protection is unconditional love. That's protection. What is unconditional love? Unconditional love is not a romantic love. Unconditional love is the ability to see everything as a part of you and vice versa. This is very important, and it's very hard for the human to do, because we need to learn how to do that interdimensionally too, even with whatever beings, crazy beings that we connect with or have experiences, because after working with so many experiencers in traumatic experiences, like currently they're being attacked and having all these things, because we didn't talk about the element of the government. That is another very strong element, because there is a government hybridization program as well, and its primarily focuses a cloning kind of program, okay? As well as children too, that's different. But how we begin to learn how to take our life force back from all of these things is by learning how to spin your vortex as fast as possible, because now you're not in resonance. You have to understand that's the law of the universe, to be or not to be in resonance. And that will attract you to these experiences. That will bring them, it will activate in your DNA the access to those experiences. So we want to, again, bring it back into this neutral state, okay? And so that can be done by learning how to master the physical body. Okay, so everything that you are, everything that you have become, we want to come into coherence. When we come into harmony, we begin to break DNA in the most productive manner. And that high manner of productivity allows us to be creators from a higher state of consciousness. We are now trying to progress into unity consciousness. Unity consciousness is the next invitation, and this is interdimensional. So anybody that says that, there's no more bad people here, there's no more bad beings, we are existing in duality. We are always going to experience light and dark. That's what we are incarnated to do. Because without that harmonious balance, there cannot be the transduction process of the alchemization through you, which affects all your interdimensional aspects. So it's important to understand that your awareness affects everything, what other beings are doing as well. And this unity consciousness is the thing that we want to activate within us. Okay? So, for many centuries, this is not something new, what I'm telling you. This is something that has been studied for centuries. It's just that all this important information about alchemy has really been put aside because we have to talk about sex. Because sex has become something that is, it's not acceptable. We can't have this conversation. It's something that's not good. So you need to understand it's actually the most important, because it's your primordial life force of creation. And we are manipulated by the unconsciousness and the ignorance of what that is. We are manipulated. We are manipulated by music. We are manipulated by fear. We are manipulated by all the lower chakras that are easy to bring the human into a state of unconsciousness, hypnosis, where they cannot master their body. So as we wake up consciousness, we now understand that we have absolute sovereignty. The sovereignty only comes into play when you become aware of yourself and begin to actively work with your multidimensional body. And this is what's been studied and talked about for centuries across the world. We see that in all of the ancient states. Okay? So, we'll leave you here. And this is the study of interdimensional death studies, because essentially what we're doing is that we're learning how to master our multidimensional body for sleep, and then we're training for death. Okay, so we need to learn, when we have a death, we have a perfect death that is constructive. When your vortex is spinning, when you're in a state of joy, harmony, peace at the time of your death, you can leave your body in a way that is constructive, multidimensionally. And it allows you to navigate death. That's what I learned through my death experience, is that I could choose. I was dying, and in that moment, I asked to be shown the contractual agreement that brought me into that death. And when I broke that contract, immediately came back into my body. And I hear this all the time from many people that have near-death experiences. We have a lot of power over what we are co-creating. So this is something that's been studied for a long time. So remember who you are means becoming one with the universe. Okay? And I want to thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure to be here.